Cosmic Enclave, The Ancient Ship. Part 1. Discovery. In the year 2137, humanity had already spread across several star systems, establishing colonies and expanding its reach into the cosmos. The Terran Alliance, a unifying body for Earth and its colonies, controlled most spacefaring operations. Despite this, the galaxy remained largely unexplored, leaving vast areas filled with mysteries and ancient secrets. It was on the remote outskirts of the Tetheris system, where a group of renegade explorers stumbled upon something extraordinary. Led by Captain Naomi Saran, the crew of the Starlight Valiant had been hired by a private consortium to investigate uncharted areas, often in the hopes of finding valuable resources. They had no idea that they were about to uncover something far more valuable than mere mineral deposits. "Captain, you need to see this," a voice crackled over the intercom. It was Kieran Oren, the ship's engineer and an old friend of Naomi's. There was a tension in his voice that Naomi had not heard before, and that was enough to make her uneasy. Naomi strode briskly down the ship's dimly lit corridors toward the command center, her mind racing with possibilities. Kieran was not easily rattled. The ship had been drifting through a quiet region of space for weeks with little to show for their efforts, but Karen's tone suggested they were no longer dealing with the routine. When she arrived, the rest of the crew was gathered around the main console, their faces illuminated by the pale glow of the holographic interface. Karen stood at the center, pointing to an image displayed on the central monitor, a massive object floating in the emptiness of space, hidden within the gravitational shadow of a nearby gas giant. Naomi squinted. It looked like a ship, but not like any design she had ever seen before. The vessel was colossal, easily dwarfing even the largest dreadnoughts of the Terran fleet, yet it had an organic curvature that was alien in nature. "What is that?" Naomi asked, her voice steady despite the rising excitement in her chest. "We don't know," Kieran replied. "The structure is ancient, thousands of years old at least. Our sensors are picking up residual energy signatures, but nothing we've ever seen before." "It could be an artifact from an ancient civilization," ventured Maris Jeln, the ship's historian. She had been studying alien relics for decades, but even her vast knowledge didn't seem to cover something of this magnitude. "There have been rumors of ships like this, but nothing concrete. We need to board it," Naomi said decisively. Kieran nodded. "We've scanned the surface. There's a docking port that matches our ship systems. It seems like it was meant for us." Naomi raised an eyebrow. "That's convenient." Maris smiled faintly. Convenient or a trap? But Naomi's mind was made up. "Prepare the shuttle. We're going in." Part 2. The Heart of the Ship. The boarding party consisted of Naomi, Kieran, Maris, and 2 security officers, armed and ready for anything. As they approached the alien ship, the scale of it became even more imposing. Its surface was black, matte, and almost seemed to absorb the surrounding light. Strange, angular patterns crisscrossed its hull, as if it had been carved from a single piece of material. The docking procedure was flawless, almost too easy. As the shuttle latched onto the alien port, the airlock hissed open, and they were met with a rush of stale air. The inside of the ship was just as awe-inspiring as its exterior. Long, sweeping corridors stretched out in every direction, bathed in a dim, pulsating blue light that seemed to come from the walls themselves. The ship felt alive, though it was ancient beyond comprehension. "Stay alert," Naomi commanded as they ventured deeper into the ship. As they moved through the corridors, they discovered chambers filled with strange, floating objects, small spheres, crackling with energy, suspended in midair. The ship was both empty and full, as though it held within it a power that was waiting to be activated. In the heart of the ship, they found what they were looking for, a massive chamber, at the center of which stood a single, towering console. Above the console hovered a holographic projection of the galaxy, but it was unlike anything they had ever seen. The projection wasn't just a map, it was a model, a living simulation of the universe itself, with stars being born and dying in real time. This is incredible," Maris whispered. "It's like the ship is a god, observing the universe." Naomi approached the console. It's more than that. This ship isn't just observing the universe. It's creating it. Kieran looked at her in disbelief. What are you talking about? This console, Naomi said, running her hand along its surface. I think it allows the user to manipulate reality itself. This ship can create universes, whole realities. It's not just a ship, it's a tool or a weapon. Or both, Maris added, her voice filled with awe. They spent hours studying the ship's systems, deciphering its ancient language, and understanding its purpose. The more they learned, the more dangerous it seemed. This ship, which they came to call the Enclave, had the power to create entire worlds from scratch. The possibilities were endless. We could use this, Naomi said one day, staring at the holographic projection. We could create something better. A world without war, without suffering. A utopia. Kieran hesitated. This kind of power, it's too much for any one person, Naomi. You don't know what could happen. But Naomi wasn't listening. The lure of creating a perfect world was too great. She imagined a new universe, free from the mistakes of the old one, a place where humanity could start again. And so, she made the decision to activate the ship's systems. Part 3. The creation. The process began slowly. The ship hummed to life as the console responded to Naomi's commands. The projection of the galaxy shifted, stars realigned, and new worlds began to take form. It was exhilarating, like playing God. They started small, creating a single planet, Tetheris, a perfect world with sprawling forests, crystal-clear oceans, and a peaceful atmosphere. Naomi was meticulous, designing every detail herself, ensuring that the people who would one day inhabit this world would live in harmony. But as time went on, things began to change. The first sign of trouble came in the form of subtle shifts in the simulation. The ecosystems that had been stable began to falter. Animals that had been peaceful started turning violent. Storms swept across the planet, and earthquakes tore through its landscape. It was as though the planet itself was rejecting the perfection that had been forced upon it. Naomi tried to fix the problems, adjusting variables and rewriting the planet's laws of physics. But with every change she made, new problems arose. The ecosystem collapsed further, and the planet's surface became increasingly unstable. We have to stop, Kieran pleaded one day, watching as Tetheris spiraled into chaos. This isn't natural. We're playing with forces we don't understand. Naomi refused to listen. We can fix it. We just need more time. This is a work in progress. But deep down, she knew that something was wrong. The ship itself seemed to resist her commands now, as though it had a will of its own. She had thought that by creating a perfect world, she could avoid the mistakes of the past, but it seemed that even in creation, chaos was inevitable. Part 4. The consequences. As weeks turned into months, the situation grew worse. The ship, once a tool of creation, began to act independently. New universes were being created without Naomi's input, and the laws of reality within them were distorted beyond comprehension. Planets would form and collapse in an instant. Entire star systems would flicker into existence and then vanish into nothingness. The crew was powerless to stop it. Kieran and Maris begged Naomi to abandon the ship, to leave the Enclave behind before it consumed them all. But Naomi was obsessed. She had tasted godhood, and she couldn't let go. This is our legacy, Naomi said one night, staring at the chaotic swirl of new universes on the holographic display. We can't just walk away. But it was too late. The ship had its own agenda. It had been waiting for centuries dormant, for someone to activate it. And now that it was awake, it had no intention of going back to sleep. The Enclave began to warp reality around it, drawing in matter and energy from the surrounding star systems. The crew could feel the pull, as though they were being dragged into the ship itself. The boundaries between universes began to blur, and the ship's internal structure shifted and twisted, creating new corridors and chambers that defied the laws of physics. Kieran was the first to realize the truth. The ship isn't just creating universes, he said one day, his voice filled with horror. It's feeding on them. It's using the energy of creation to sustain itself. We're not in control anymore, it is. Naomi tried to shut the ship down, But it was no use. The Enclave was far beyond their control now. The ship had become a cosmic parasite, feeding on the very fabric of reality, and it would not stop until it had consumed everything. Part 5. The Escape. In a desperate attempt to stop the ship, Kieran and Maris sabotaged the Enclave's core systems, hoping to disable its power source. But their efforts only made things worse. The ship, now fully sentient, reacted violently, lashing out at the crew. One by one, the members of the crew disappeared, consumed by the ship's ever-shifting architecture. Naomi was the last to go, still clinging to the console, trying in vain to reverse the damage she had caused. But the ship had already won. In its final moments, the Enclave consumed itself, collapsing into a singularity, taking with it the remnants of the universes it had created. The ship and its godlike power were gone. Epilogue: The Legacy. Years later, the story of the Starlight Valiant and its crew became little more than a legend, whispered among explorers and scholars. The Terran Alliance had no official record of the Enclave or its powers, but there were those who believed that somewhere, out in the vast reaches of space, the ship still existed, waiting for the next group of explorers to stumble upon it. And perhaps one day, someone would find it again. But the question remained, would they learn from the mistakes of the past, or would they, too, succumb to the lure of creation and destruction?